promised in a video a little while back that I would show you how to paint or what mediums to use. And these three samples here are different mediums, and I will show those to you and tell you what they are and show you what they are. And then later what I'm going to do is actually do the process. I'll cut them out and then we can come back and I can show you what they look like. But this is the first one. And as you can see, that the colors are pretty good. I mean, they're not, I could have made them darker, I suppose, but you have a lot of playtime with them. And here is what happens with those. Yeah. So they're a nice soft color. They can be softer, but or darker if we wanted them to. So this is done with, yeah, let me get it in here. All right, this is done with this. This is from the Dollar Tree. So this is what you get. You dip your brush in water and put it on what I'm using here as a base is I'm using photo paper. And if you're afraid of spending too much money on photo paper, use cheap things. These are from the Dollar Tree. The photo paper is from the Dollar Tree. So I don't mind playing around with it and worrying about if I'm going to mess it up or whatever. So that's how those are done. This next one is done with, and this is really quite light, so maybe I can show it on here best. I don't know. Anyways, there it is. Pretty light. This is done with watercolor crayons. And if you don't know what those are, they are, where are you? Watercolor crayons? Here they are. These are watercolor crayons, and these are by Recollection. So these are Michael's brand. And I got them, I had a 40% off plus 20. So are these my favorite? Probably not. At least not for this particular thing, because the colors do come out lighter. And I suppose I could have, pushed harder or whatever. But they are a crayon. They're very creamy. Let me try to pull one out here and see if you can see it or not. All right, I don't know if you can see that or not. Maybe if well, I'm going to do it anyways in a few minutes, but anyways, that's what it looks like. So these are the watercolor crayons. The next medium that I used was alcohol ink, and I have to say this is probably my favorite because you get a deeper color, deeper saturation. See how much more you can get. And I applied those, and if you're not familiar with alcohol inks, I'll put one up here. This is what they are. There are other brands, I'm sure. This is a Tim Holtz brand, and I applied it with one of these. Now I have a couple of these, and I keep these, I call them daubers, but I keep them separate. So they have Velcro on them. You can, let me see if I can do it. You can peel it off, and I save them by color so that I don't have to put fresh ones on all the time, and they work really well. So that's how the alcohol ink is put on. So without further ado, maybe that's what we'll try first, is the alcohol ink. Let me get these things over here. These are the ones we've already colored. Okay, let's do the paints first, because they seem to be right here. All right, so let me get my paper. I tried to make this so that you can see exactly what's happening here. This is, let me get my brush. And for this, of course, you'll need water. And I've got a little container. What I do is I keep water up here. I don't drink it. It's nasty because I put my paintbrush in there too many times. So, using my water, what I do is dip into my water, and let's do purple. Let's do purple. So this is my watercolor paint. Now, let me grab a rag here. This dries pretty fast too. It's not too bad. But I also sometimes just wipe it off so that there's not quite so much water on it. And that way you're going to get a deeper color. You see how much deeper that is? Yeah. And you can do it like on the outside and lighter on the inside or whatever, because once you're done with it, you know, you're going to be able to, when you put your little squiggly things on there, they're going to take up the color. So since I have the water out, let's go next to the pens, or they're called crayons, is what they're called. They're called signature watercolor crayons. So we'll turn out. Let's get something like red. Now these are kind of different. They really are. Let me see if I can pull this to. There we go. Okay, so that's still not good. There we go. All right, so basically what you do is just go around in a circle. If you want it to be darker in the middle or whatever. And again, we're going to use water. And I pour my water into the cap, because then if I spill it, which I do often, I'll just be spilling a cap full. All right, here we go. See how it's picking it up, moving it around? So these are pretty good, you know? These are kind of nice. And again, just like all the rest of them, you can make them as much as you want. The other thing you can also do is you can blot them. It gives them a little texture. Let's blot this one, just so it dries fast anyways. All right, so we're done with the water. Let me just clean my brush out here. I go through so many brushes. I think because I don't clean them out quick enough, I'm always going to use them again, so I don't know. Let me pour this back in here without getting it on the floor. There we go. And so the next one we're going to use is the watercolor. And the alcohol ink, I'm sorry, the alcohol ink. And this is by far my favorite. If you like alcohol inks, you'll like this process. If you've never worked with them, they're a little tricky at first because, well, I'll show you how it works here. Let's start off with, I probably should have done everything red, but anyway. So here's the alcohol ink. And this one is called Red Pepper. And again, I'm going to put it on here. Just a couple drops is all that's necessary. And then I'm going to move it around on here. See how much more vibrant the color is? So if I had to pick a favorite, I guess I'd pick that. As far as color is concerned, the saturation is so much better. But economically, these are not the cheapest thing in the world. So economically, probably the next would be these from the Dollar Tree. Because you can go back over these, and let's see if we can't do that. Make that purple darker. Yeah. Yeah, there's still a little bit of water left on there. So I'm just brushing it over on almost dry. A lot of it has to do with how much time you take to do these things, I guess. And then we need to let it dry a little bit so that we can go ahead. I like that darker color. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's going to look good on that, I think. So that would be that one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my little cutters, my little dies, and I'm going to cut these out, and I will bring them back so that you can see what is from each one of the mediums. So I'll be back in a moment here and just kind of recap what they are. This one here is, let me just move these over. This one here is done with the paints, and that's these little Dollar Tree paints. And here is the finished project. I think that, you know, the colors are nice. So you just work with them a little bit. You get a bang for your buck, I guess. All right. These are the watercolor crayons. And you can see they're not as vibrant. I tried to cut it down where it was darker. Here's the color that one. Now this is pretty. I mean, this is going to work for sure. And you don't want them all to be the same anyways, because that's the whole thing, is to splash them on your page or your card or your journal or whatever, every which way. So that's the watercolor, and that's these pens from Recollection pens from Michaels. And they're not pens. They're crayons. They feel like crayons even. So that, and then here is with the alcohol ink. So you see there's a much bigger saturation with the alcohol ink. And here is, let's put it up high. Okay, so there is our little squiggly thing. So I guess I prefer the alcohol ink, but if you were doing something that you wanted to cut out some type of dye, and you had, you were shabby chic or whatever, then certainly you'd want to go for maybe some of the lighter colors. It just depends on what you're going to use them on. What I do when I have scrap papers left over from printing a photo is I save the pieces out, and then I go ahead and use them to make some dies, because I do cut my dies, a lot of dies ahead of time. Let me just cut these while we're at it. Okay, so I've got this whole other piece to work with, and I do cut a lot of things, and especially like flowers. If I've got the die in there, I'm going to use whatever I have on hand that's scrap paper laying around. I'm going to use that in order to make some things, and then what I do is I file them. So I probably do a video later on build a flower, kind of like Build-A-Bear, that I do when I've got leftover pieces of felt and all that type of thing, and I just sit down and do a lot of flower bases, and then I file them away by color and use them that way. So that's the techniques, and there's no reason why you can't use regular, like from the Dollar Tree, regular watercolor pencils, and just go ahead and add your water to it and make it as dark as you want to do. So I hope that was helpful to you, and I hope you enjoyed it, and leave me a comment if there's something you'd like to see or hear about. Just let me know. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.